Good morning, fellow baseball way of lifers. How we all doing? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Glad you could join us. Today, I just want to discuss one of the baseball feud questions we had. We always have one baseball feud question every day at 7:30 p.m. And that question that I'm going to go over is what player's career became more mythical than his actual performance on the field warrants? You guys came up with a lot of great responses. What I'm going to do is give you probably my top five choices. I'll name them and then explain a little bit why. Number one is Ichiro Suzuki. Number two is Bryce Harper. Number three is Jack Morris. Number four is Bob Euchre. And number five is Trevor Bauer. Let me start first with Ichiro. There's no denying Ichiro was a great 5-tool player. He could even hit for power on occasion. Great all-around player. But I just don't see him as being one of the all-time greats like many people prop him up to be. His all-time WAR is a lot lower than a lot of Hall of Famers already in the Hall. And basically, he was a singles hitter when you break it down at the top of the lineup. Good bat, but again, not a top-tier Hall of Famer in my opinion. I know a lot of people are going to start throwing rocks through the screen here, but that's just my opinion. I do appreciate Ichiro for what he gave to the game, a great international symbol. If he played his whole career in the major leagues, he'd probably be a 3,000 hit guy. Just that he is not someone I'd automatically want to build a franchise around. No disrespect to Ichiro, but that's just my opinion. Number two is Bryce Harper. I think this guy has been all hype since he first came up. He is a great player. Don't get me wrong. He'll give you 30 homers every year, 80 to 100 RBIs, about 270, 280. But you're not really going to get much more than that. And he had that 1 year where he was just off the charts. But the rest of the year is basically so-so. You put any other player's name in front of those stats, and you say, oh, my God, Bryce Harper's comparable to that guy. So in my opinion, that's the deal with Bryce Harper. I mean, great player, great addition to a team, but is he worth the big money that Betts or Trout is worth? I don't think so. And again, that's just my opinion. Jack Morris, how he's in the Hall of Fame, I'll never know. I ran a poll the other day comparing who would you pick, Jack Morris or Kevin Brown. Majority picked Jack Morris. For some reason, he's Teflon. He can get away with anything. They still love Jack Morris because that one World Series game. They make him out to be this big postseason hero. And don't get me wrong, Jack is Jack. He's going to give you an ERA close to 4, give you a lot of innings, give up a lot of home runs. And people say, well, he gives up the home runs when they have the lead. But how come other pitchers don't? How come other pitchers don't have an ERA around 4? Why not just limit the other team to 1 to 2 runs? I never fell for that story that, well, he gives up the runs when they don't count. To me, a good pitcher just never gives up runs because you never know in baseball when the other team can come back. And like I said, I think his one game in the postseasons made him this postseason hero, and I don't think that's the case at all. Again, he was on a lot of good teams that gave him a lot of support. Those Detroit ball clubs really supported him well all those years. And Jack was a serviceable starter. I mean, I'd have him on my team any day, but to make him a Hall of Fame pitcher, I say no. I think there's a lot of other great pitchers out there from his era who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. As I mentioned, Kevin Brown, Curt Schilling, even I don't care what Curt Schilling did off the field or what his mouth is blabbing off at any given time. He deserves to be in there before Jack Morris. The other one I mentioned here is Bob Euchre. Bob Euchre has made a legend of himself and a money-making career by parroting his mediocre statistics and life as a backup catcher in baseball. Hey, in my opinion, any player who makes the major leagues is a great player. But he is so self-deprecating. He makes it sound like there's no way he should have been in the major leagues. But Bob had talent. Don't let him kid you. He had a couple of dingers off of Sandy Koufax. Was he a great player? No. But I think his myth is like he was the worst baseball player of all time, and he plays up to it. So hats off to Bob. He took his baseball career on the field, ran with it off the field, and became a household name once he left the game. So way to go, Bob. And then the other one is Trevor Bauer. I could be wrong. I mean, Trevor Bauer could be lights out. If you go by how he's hyping himself as improving himself with his spin rate and everything in last year, which was only a 60-game schedule against the AL and NL Central teams. And he had one other good year a couple years before that. But the rest, he's basically a pitcher with an ERA of 4. And history tells us that unless it's Sandy Koufax, who had a terrible start to his career, the stats don't lie once you reach age 30, especially when you're a right-handed pitcher. So right now, I'd have to say he is more hype than anything, but we shall see. I've been proven wrong before. Hey, I'll give you a little sidelight. When Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf were in the same draft, I said Ryan Leaf is going to be so much better than Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was so soft because he played for University of Tennessee. And look what happened. So you can't always go by me. I'm one of those that has an opinion like everybody else. And for Trevor's sake, I hope I'm wrong. Now, you guys left a lot of great answers. And I'll give a shout out to those who gave different answers and mention them. Bob Gardali says Marv Throneberry. And Marv's another one. Miller Lite made his, sort of like Euchre. Miller Lite made his career afterwards. And being with the 62 Mets, he played up the fact that, he was a mediocre player on a bad team, but he made it sound like he was one of the worst players of all time. John Weigel comes in with the moment guys. And the moment guys could always have decent careers, and these guys did, but they'll always remember for that one moment. So I could see where John is coming from when he mentions Carlton Fisk, Bucky Dent, Bobby Thompson, and Aaron Boone. David Mahler says Cal Ripken. And I used to think that way too, but I did a deep study of Cal and his playing career. And as I've grown older and done more research, I think Cal was a lot better than even I thought he was. And I think he was the best shortstop of his era. His only downside was he didn't hit for a high average, but I would take Cal any day of the week. Reginald Michael Green says Babe Ruth. And that'll always start a debate off with everyone here, but I respect Reginald's opinion. John Keenan says Moonlight Graham. Yes, Moonlight Graham, I think, did get one at bat in the major leagues, but due to Field of Dreams, he has become a legend, a cinema legend, way after he left this earth. Mike Carmignati, point blank, says Gil Hodges, Ichiro, Steve Garvey, Omar Vizquel, and Pete Rose. I kind of agree with all 5 of them for various reasons, and those are solid picks. Warren Handy says Sadahara O, and there could be some legitimacy to that. I mean, he played against Japanese baseball players, and who knows how many home runs he would have hit if he was in the major leagues, but we'll never know. So that will always be open-ended, I should say. Joshua Cade Craftsman says Mike Trout. That's one I have to disagree with. I think Mike has just been phenomenal so far. There's no myth about his performance. Actually, it may be understated a bit. Bob Moldenhauer says Catfish Hunter. And to the degree I agree with him, because Catfish was always on good ball clubs that could hit and support him offensively and defensively. Reminds me a little bit of Jack Morris in that regard, but I probably would take Catfish over Jack Morris, but I'd have to do more research on that. But again, I'm not that big fan of Catfish Hunter. I think he's an adorable pitcher. He was gutsy. He also gave up a lot of home runs like Jack Morris, couldn't give you a lot of innings. And when you're pitching for teams that can hit, that's all you need is a guy going out there and give you a steady 7 to 9 innings. Back in Catfish's day, he basically pitched a complete game, I think, at least every other game. Gary Obenthal says Matt Harvey. That one's tough. Matt Harvey was actually living up to his hype when unfortunately he got injured. Was he hyped up more so than others? I can see where Gary's coming from on that one. Yes, he was, but he did show potential to be one of the greats. Unfortunately, we'll probably never see the real Matt Harvey again. Jeffrey Cromwell says Roger Clemens. I shake my head to that one. Roger may have been the best pitcher during the era he pitched in. His only downside is steroid use, but I can't say that he's more myth. That guy can bring it. Gary Schwartz says Vida Blue. I think people recognize Vida Blue for what he was. He was a flamethrower when he first came up, probably one of the most dominating pitchers his first couple of years in the major leagues. Then he became a solid lower tier ace, second starter pitcher on any ball club. And I don't think people are actually expected more than that from Vida. But that's just my opinion. Scott M. Blomer says Bob Euchre like I did. Imran Khan says Fernando Valenzuela. Well, when you come on high and heavy like Fernando, it is tough to live up to the hype for the rest of your career. But Fernando had a decent career, a little bit below Hall of Fame standards, but he was a good player and a good ambassador for the game and drew a lot of eyeballs to the game. So I'm not sure if he was more hype because he did a lot of good for the game, but I can see the point of him being hyped. Marvin Duchal says Harold Baines. Mike Fisk says Chris Bryant. And yeah, Chris Bryant is kind of flamed out, hasn't he? I don't know what's going on. He was supposed to be the next big thing when he first came up. And Harold Baines, I think, was just a steady all-star player. And I think people are going to say he's more myth because he's in the Hall of Fame, but I think the Veterans Committee did something there to get him in. So I'm not going to begrudge Harold that. Ben Solov says the entire Houston Astros team, 2017, 2019. And I guess that's something we could talk about at a future date, that Houston Astro era team. It's always good for a lot of good debate, and maybe we'll touch on that one. And then Steven Fast says, made it funny. BJ Upton, wait, everyone knows he sucks. BJ was another guy that was hyped up, but unfortunately never lived up to it. Dan Harrell says Barry Bonds and Manny Machado. I can't see Bonds. I think people just hold the steroid use against him. And Machado is, at first I thought he was all hype, but if you look at his years with last year and the year before with San Diego, he has actually played very well and hasn't gotten the attention he deserved. Marty Russell says Roy Hobbs. And if there's anyone who's more fiction than Roy Hobbs, I don't know who is. John Barone Bingle says Hideo Nomo, and I think he falls into the not Trevor Bauer, Fernando Valenzuela category, where when you come on that strong and you're a foreign-born player and you capture the baseball world, it's tough to do that for the rest of your career. Ken Wingate, I agree with Ken. He says Trevor Bauer. David Garrett says Derek Jeter. And he gives a good point. He says Jeter was a first ballot Hall of Famer. I agree. But people talk about him being one of the elite shortstops, let alone players. And he says he was one of the worst shortstops of at least his time, but made up for it with great offense. And then he goes on with other valid points. But I think Derek is put on too high a pedestal. He is one of the all-time greats, but I don't think he's in that top 5 percentile of Hall of Famers, I should say. Kevin Kramer says Bill Buckner. And a lot of people through various discussions in the group have mentioned Bill, that he was a solid player, good hitter, good speed till he got hurt. But he really wasn't all that. He was more of an accumulator with statistics. So not going to disagree or agree with Bill Buckner, but I could see why. John Ford says Mario Mendoza. I think he kind of fits into that Bob Euchre category, where he's got a Mendoza line for being an inferior hitter. But again, when you're a major leaguer and you can hit 200, there's a lot of other guys who hit 200. You just became famous for that 200 line. Ed Annunziato says Sid Finch. Valentino Garcia said Kirk Gibson. I kind of agree there. And one of the reasons why I agree with that is I still don't know how Kirk Gibson was co-MVP in 1988. That just bothered, or was he full MVP? I can't remember, but he was MVP in 88, and I don't know how, honestly. He just had average statistics for an outfielder. Sergio Arenas is Curtis Granderson. Andy Andrews cracks a joke when he says Josh Gibson. Somehow his 15,000 home runs seems a bit exaggerated. I get the point. As the years go by, some of these Negro players get better and better and better in these mythical conversations. I'm sure he was one of the best, but as the years go by, they make it sound like he invented baseball. Alan Cheek says that midget who played for the White Sox. I guess he's talking about Eddie Geidel, and that's a lot of hype. That is the ultimate hype job of all time. Eric Quick says Deion Sanders. Deion had the ability, but I think part of it was all personal promotion on his part by playing both sports. I don't even know if he's really that dedicated to baseball. He could play the game, but was he uh, as good as he could have been? I don't think so. Geeker Cruisin says, hate to say it, but no one Ryan, love him, but ... And no one's one of those players that always divides the house. Some say he's overrated, some say he's underrated, and that's the beauty of baseball. And Harvey Porras ends it with Marvelous Moore Throneberry. What a perfect example to end this. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this. It was my 5 players there who I thought became more mythical than their actual playing career entitled them to be. And your choices. It was a fun question. And again, thanks for all participating in these in the Facebook group. I hope you enjoyed me giving some feedback on the post. And if you like the video, please hit like. If you don't like it, tell me about it. If you like something about these videos, leave it in the comment field. If you don't, I can take it, leave it in the negative comments in the same comment field, but make it a negative comment. And don't forget, on the YouTube channel, I only put one of these videos on the group site a day, but on the YouTube channel, I'll have at least one more, maybe more a day. For example, today I have a 2021 season preview on the Texas Rangers. So you can go to that site and just here and subscribe to the group, and you'll get updates on all the new postings. So for now, I'll just talk to you guys later. And thanks for being part of the greatest baseball group in the world on Facebook. I really appreciate you all being members. Thanks.